Uh, I think I'm recording. Hello, my name is Devin Reed, and today I'm going to be presenting my final project for Software Engineering 861. The things we're going to cover today is just an introduction on the application I made, our primary goals, the design process I followed and executed, the challenges and opportunities that were presented during the project, a quick demo, and then final remarks. So to get started, the application I developed was called Meloview. I chose this name just by shortening the word melody, since this application is all about searching music and providing the results to the user. This application allows users to query a song, an artist information, and using Spotify's vast music databases. The results are presented to the user in a kind of a list structure that's very similar with how really any search results are presented. One goal I had with this project is to make it scalable and make it easily deployable by following and using GitLab's CI/CD process. So some of my primary goals: allow users to search both songs and artists and present that information to the user. Allow the user to be able to click on these results that are presented on the web interface to view more detail, and then create a CI/CD pipeline that tests, builds, and deploys the application. For the first goal, I did deliver on this. I created an intuitive search page that delivers both these things. So in this picture over here on the right, this is the home page. There's a search bar and a drop-down menu that lets you fix which method you'd like to search by, whether it's by song or by artist. And I'll go in more of that during the demo, but this functionality does exist. The ability to allow users to click on individual results. This goal was not reached during the project, just because the deployment of the app actually threw a couple curveballs at me that I wasn't expecting. So the cards that are actually presented, while I wanted them to just be kind of a name that you could click on, and then that would actually take you to a separate HTML page to actually present the results in detail. I instead designed these little cards that pop up that actually show all the information from the cover art to the artist, name of the song, and also album and release year. So, and this is really most of the information that's available easily with the Spotify API with the basic kind of scope of using their API. So what I've kind of found out at the end is that I actually kind of prefer it this way, just because the information's more easily attainable and you don't actually have to click and go to multiple pages. So this might be better, but maybe a feature improvement in the future would be to expand on this idea that I originally had. The CI/CD pipeline. I have used this quite a bit in my current career at Penn State. I do work for Penn State right now as a software engineer. I am in love with GitLab and CI/CD, so I knew I had to implement at least a basic pipeline to start. The pipeline I ended up putting together is a pretty good start for a production pipeline, but it's not quite there yet. It only has 2 stages, linting and deployment. Since this is Python, there's no need for a build stage. The closest to a build is that it does build a Docker image that containerizes the app and pushes that to an Artifactory. So over here on the right, there's a screen cap of my very latest job that I ran with the lint passing and the deploy, which builds the Docker images and pushes it out to my private Docker Hub repo. And the image below is actually a report result from the linting. There were some lints that I left behind on purpose just so I could have something to show here. So this is an easy way to see and actually track code quality as far as linting goes. And I wanted to also get a code map set up like a report, but that's actually a GitLab Ultimate feature. So us free users can actually display that. But there's not too much remaining here to actually get this to a production ready pipeline. So the last step would just be to push the image to a remote hosting service such as AWS or Azure and get that going. Design implementation. I'm going to take a break from the PowerPoint here and take us to GitLab for this part, since I have the documentation on this up here. So the interaction with the design that I had laid out here is that the user should be able to go to this website, through either the locally with testing or eventually with hosting, actually having a domain for it and then loading that. And I want them to be able to enter a song, click search, and get the results back. And then the second use case that I didn't cover was to be able to click and expand on search results as I covered. The software stack that I ended up using was Python as like the main backend engine. I ended up using Flask instead of Django just because I was more comfortable with it. PyTest, I actually didn't end up writing any unit tests for the code just because of time, and there really wasn't much to unit test in this case. I know that's a poor excuse, but there's no PyTest going on here. And an HTML CSS is what I wrote to actually present the templates in something that a web browser can understand. Front end development is not my forte, so it's a little rough, but I'm glad with how it turned out. GitLab for version control and CI/CD, Docker for containerization and deployment and development, and AWS was going to be my targeted deployment, but I never ended up getting the image put up there, even though it was pretty close. And then the API that I've been using for this project is the Spotify web API. Okay, returning back to the PowerPoint. Don't give too many PowerPoint presentations, I apologize. Challenges and opportunities, right? Yes. So some of the challenges I faced, as I just mentioned, I'm not too good at front end development. So it was a pretty constructive exercise, I'll say, to go through and do that. Did actually learn a few bit, flex a few muscles I haven't flexed in a while. So that was a good experience. OAuth, authentication, and secret keeping, something that I hate thinking about, but it's very important in a production environment, especially with just the security and everything that we have to deal with in our modern world. So I did take special care to actually implement Spotify's OAuth authentication so that users log in and log out with their accounts. And for secrets that are kept during this, I had an environment variable file for local testing. And then for production, I had them as masked GitLab variables that would only be injected at the last minute for the production Docker container and deploying an app within a containerized environment. I've done it before in C++. This was my first Python experiment. So a little different, and there were some hiccups with kind of the last getting things ready, but again, it was a very good experience. Opportunities I've found is that expand the homepage just to provide even more functionality. The login, log out for Spotify's web API is pretty much handled under the hood and also through the Spotify, like a redirect to them and then a redirect back. I would also like to see a little bit more functionality, like taking into like that Spotify account, which it's all there. I saw it when I was doing it, but not in the scope of this project. And then I also would like to allow the playback of songs. This is another thing, not the same API, but a separate one could be used to actually play songs back through the web over the user's browser, which excites me a little bit. And then also just deploying the Docker image to a production cluster, probably the easiest of these opportunities because I have the image, just need to set up the ECS cluster, send it away. Quick demo. So right now, and the whole time I've been presenting, I have had a Docker image running of the final production version. So this was actually built in the pipeline, pushed to my repository, and I pulled it down to my local desktop. So this wasn't even built here on my machine. So for good measure, I'm just going to restart this container. And then once it comes back up line, we can connect to it via like localhost. I gave it a special port that's not the default port. And this is the splash page. So this is what pops up when you first go to the website. And to demonstrate the functionality here, you see I've had a few here, but we're going to search something I haven't searched. So how about Uptown Funk? And we see this is the drop-down box to select the search. So this is a song name. And then this loads. So under the hood, that is reaching out to Spotify's web API and gets like a list of all the results, and we take all that information and actually format it nice and present it to the user. So this presents the songs, the top 10 songs from that search result. There is a back button for easy use back, and the back button also works through your browser, but that's kind of cheating, right? And then for an artist name, we can do Bruno Mars, switch to artist name, the same search, and here's Bruno Mars. So for the artists, it is a little different. These HTML templates are very, very similar, but the information inside them and the way that they were pulled does vary. So this one has genre, their followers, and a popularity. One challenge, actually, now that we're on this, is that not every artist has a picture, and that caused me a lot of headaches when for initially implementing this. And what I ended up doing was putting the base Meloview logo as the default image so that the program would not crash. But that is the whole summary of this. That's all that this does. So there's no more to really discuss here. I will say briefly that I can't to let you or any professor TA review this. I do have to add a username to the Spotify web API so that you can actually hit and ping that, because it is a login happening underneath. So we can coordinate with that if there's a secondary review through email after. So I think final remarks. So yeah, final remarks. The plan, created a plan, laid out the use cases analysis early and on schedule. Investigated the entire software stack. So from Docker, the language I was going to be using, to the API, the whole GitLab, what version control, all thought out ahead of time. The implementation, created the working version, the original plan, and with satisfying almost all of the original use cases. Deployment, created infrastructure as code early on to process and facilitate fast CI/CD. And reflection, there's a lot of places where I'd like to improve this and actually see it grow over time, even not for grades, but just to actually continue this project more, and also deploying it to a service provider. That is all I have. My name again is Devin Reed, and for questions regarding the project and demos and uses, feel free to reach out to my email. Thank you.